So just watch it. Okay. So that's number one. So we're at the end of this chapter, but Josie reminds me of something that we talked about earlier, she and I. And Josie had a nasty fall that could have been very, very dangerous. And thankfully, Josie is here to study with us and to be okay. Just needs to heal up a little bit. So she would like to share a blessing that in the good old days, we would be reciting this in shul together, and Josie would get an aliyah, and then she would make the blessing afterwards, and we would all be able to respond to her. This is called the benching gomel, saying the blessing called gomel, ha-gomel. So the blessing is found in the weekday, big, old, sturdy, faithful Sim Shalom Sidur on page 142. And it might be also in, does the Shabbat PDF that we have, does that have the Torah service in it? John, do you remember?
What page number is it on? I kind of remember from pages.
So in there, it should be something like, also something like 142, which, because yeah, something like that. I'm going to run over and get it right this second. Hold on.
It's on page 142.
That's what I said.
Yep, they're
Yeah,
in both of them. Yeah.
it's the same page. Unbelievable. So this is one of the proofs of God's existence that the ancient medieval philosophers adduced. So you can't make this stuff up. Anyway, so in the middle of that page is this blessing. It's on page 142 in either Sim Shalom that you have, and and is that page is it part of the PDF, John? Do you remember?
Should be, yeah.
Great. So if you want to access it, let's just take a half a second to get there. Josie, you have it with you?
Yes, I do.
Great. Okay. And by the way, Josie, you're looking great.
Ha! Thank you.
All right. So, okay. So here we are. So the blessing is in the middle of the page. It starts with the regular words that we recite for blessings. Josie, do you feel comfortable doing the first part, at least in Hebrew, and then the second part we can go over into the English? Would that be good for you? You want to do the whole thing in Hebrew or the whole thing in English? What do you want to do?
I think I'll do it in English. I don't want to miss the Hebrew.
Okay. Very, very good. So,
Right?
yes,
You tell me, should I start?
it started at 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Praised are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who graciously bestows favor upon the undeserving, even as he has bestowed favor upon me.
Amen. And we all answer, Mi shigmalech tov, hu yigmalech kol tov selah. That may the one who has been gracious to you continue to favor you with all that is good. So, and we mean it, Josie.
Thank you very
So
much.
we hope that everything will continue to be good. You've been saved a lot of terrible possibilities there of what happened. And even though you have plenty of recuperation still to go, let it all go smoothly. And refuah shlema, right? A
Thank you
speedy
very
and full recovery. Good. Yasher koach to everybody to be the community that we can be together. Yasher koach. So we're at the very end of the first perek, as I said, of Pirkei Avot, and there's a traditional concluding statement that was added once reciting Pirkei Avot became a custom from Pesach till Shavuot, and then it got expanded to go all the way to Rosh Hashanah. Every Shabbat afternoon, there was a custom to read a chapter of Pirkei Avot. So once that became a kind of a liturgical practice, and not just, oh, let's study Pirkei Avot because it's a really interesting piece of Torah. Once it became part of the prayer kind of practice of the Jewish people, it was embellished with other things. So you may have this selection in front of you. It's called Rabbi Hanania ben Akashia Omer. Rabbi Hanania ben Akashia Omer. Does everybody have that? Yeah.
No, in the Pirkei Avot?
Yep, it's at the end of it. So Rabbi Shapiro may have it in some kind of introductory remark. The first couple of lines before the first Mishnah, we have one statement, and we'll say it in a minute when we start this in the next chapter. And then this is the concluding statement. And this follows every single chapter. It's not really part of Pirkei Avot. It just became the custom to do this.
Rabbi?
So, what?
Rabbi, it's David Kanigas. Is this paragraph also employed on other occasions, such as maybe when somebody gives Dvar Torah between Mincha and Marav during the week?
Yeah, because it's
this is it.
This is, yes, one of the sort of standard ways of concluding a study session.
You said
Right,
Rabbi
okay.
Hanania ben Akashia?
Yes.
Yes, I have it in mind.
Okay. So how about, why don't you do us the favor of reading it? And Josie, you say you don't have it?
I don't see it in any
Okay.
part of the chapter.
It would be at the very, very end of the last one.
Maybe it'll be right. Maybe it'll be at the end of the last chapter of Pirkei Avot. Maybe you put it all the way at the end. Take a look over there. Okay, Josie, go. Geraldine, go.
Okay. Rabbi Hanania ben Akashia taught, the Holy One, praised be he, desired to benefit the people Israel. Therefore, he gave them the Torah with an abundance of mitzvot, as it is written. The Lord was pleased for his righteousness' sake to make the Torah great and glorious.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
real-
from Isaiah 62.
Right, that's the 42. That's the,
This one says 62. Okay.
we're gonna have to check. In my edition, it says 42.
Okay.
So, Ratzah Kadosh Baruch Hu lezakot et Yisrael lefichach hirba lahem Torah u'mitzvot. Shneimar, Hashem chafetz leman tzidko yagdil Torah v'yad.
Here.
And that's the last words of, in the morning davening, Uval Tzion, which goes right into Aleinu. So I think it says here, yeah, it's 42.
I do have it.
You have 62. You have, Geraldine, just 60. Does it say the verse number?
21.
Yeah, it's 42.
Okay, the book is wrong.
Rabbi
You can take a
Shapiro has
pencil.
it in the epilogue, but the last two lines are different.
Yeah, go ahead.
Should I read the whole thing? It's the
Sure.
last.
Yeah. Read that
Rabbi-
little statement.
Hanina ben
Hanania.
Akashia teaches, the holy, blessed.
What happened to you? We can't hear you. Sorry, you got frozen out. If you can hear me, I think maybe you have to like either wait or come back in again.
Did
Now
you
I can hear you. What happened?
I have a problem with this. Did you hear any of it?
No, go start again. Rabbi Hanania.
Rabbi Hanania teaches, the Holy Blessed One wished to confer merit on Israel. Therefore, God gave them Torah and mitzvot in abundance. As it is said, and this is in quotes, Hashem desired, for the sake of Israel's righteousness, that the Torah be made great and glorious, end quote.
Okay, very good. So we have two translations, and each one has a certain kind of a thing to contribute. I want to point out that we have the word that is used to say what God wanted to do for Israel. So Geraldine, you have that God wanted to, the Holy Blessed One, praised be he, or whatever, desired.
Wait a minute. Crazy. Desired to benefit the people Israel.
Desired to benefit. And then Josie, what do you have?
Wish the Holy Blessed One wished to confer merit on Israel.
Okay, so
There's
that,
a different translation here as well.
okay,
Was pleased to make Israel worthy.
Okay, so we've got a few different translations. The first two are related, and the second one is and the third one is a different one. The Hebrew word that's being translated is lizakot.
Yes.
Lizakot. So that comes from the word zchut. There's the word zakai. There's the word zocheh. The word zchut can be translated as merit. We have a phrase zchut avot, that we have the merit of our ancestors that stands for us when we are in trouble. But we also have the word as being, well, we just had the blessing for Josie, Hagomela chayavim tovot. And there, the translation we had was, God bestows goodness to the undeserved. So that's chayav. And the opposite of chayav is zakai, is a person who is deserving, or a person who is meritorious. If you look at Mishnah 8 in chapter 1.
8. Right.
All right. So, Geraldine, you have Mishnah 8?
Yes.
Yehuda ben Tabai.
Yehuda ben Tabai and Shimon ben Shetah received the tradition from them. Yehuda ben Tabai taught, when serving as a judge, do not play the role of counsel for either litigant. When the litigants appear before you, deem them both guilty, but when they depart, having accepted the verdict, regard them both as innocent.
So that's the word zakaim, right? So they are innocent. So here, the question is, what did God want to do for us by giving us the Torah? So one answer is God wanted to give us a gift. God wanted to grant us a nice thing, right? To zachin li'adam shelo b'fanav. When you can take possession of something that will be to the benefit of somebody, God wanted to benefit us. But a different way of looking at it, if we look at it in legal terms, is that God wanted us to be able to increase our innocence, or increase our merit, not just merit, but actually within the context of worthiness or unworthiness. So without the Torah, we would be bereft of a means of making our life worthy. So that's another way to look at it. There's another way to look at it, which is that the word zach also means pure. So some people have read this as that God wanted to purify us by giving us the Torah and the mitzvot. The Torah and the mitzvot are the means of washing away our spiritual, our existential impurity. So these are different ways of looking at how the Torah operates. And of course, this is just one little word, but that opens up vast vistas of how people think about what living with the Torah is. Now, what does it mean to have the Torah as part of one's life? Does it change one's life? Is it just, it enriches my life? It doesn't change my life. Does it transform your life? Does it completely change the rules of the game for the person? So that's one thing to pay attention to. When we look at the translation of the last sentence, the sentence from Isaiah. So look at, please, in your English text. And Josie, can you read, before we get to Josie's, Geraldine, can you read yours first?
Yes, the Lord was pleased for his righteousness' sake.
How is his righteousness written? How's the word his written?
With a capital H.
With a capital H. So that refers to God, right? So this is because God is the righteous one, because God is the fount of all goodness and justice and righteousness. So for God's own sake, God gave us the Torah so that in this world, the manifestation of God's righteousness should happen, should unfold. So that would be one way to read it. But when you read Rabbi Shapiro's translation, Josie, you got it?
Yes. Hashem desired for the sake of Israel's righteousness.
So he makes it very explicit. He doesn't even just, because he wants to keep it also gender neutral. In the Hebrew, it's gender specific male, but he makes it very specific that it's explicit, that it's for our sake of righteousness, right? Which follows a little bit from what Hananiah ben Akashia seems to be saying. So you could read it, of course, either way. Probably the first way is the most, probably the way it really was meant when Isaiah says it. And yet the other way, of course, is very much in keeping with what this sage was trying to say. This is our opportunity to be part of God's own nature, right? God is for sure the righteous one. And now, for the sake of our developing righteousness, God gave us the gift of the Torah. And to make it glorious. What does that mean?
Torah v'yadir.
Yagdil Torah v'yadir. To magnify, to make it greater, to make it bigger and bigger, and more glorious.
My translation says, make it honorable.
Make it honorable, okay? More honorable instead of glorious. Okay, so what would all of these things mean?
I get a sense that we're not just to think of the Torah as a sacred book that we put in the corner and revere, but it isn't part of our lives.
That's what we're getting from the Torah, right? God gives us the Torah. It's a wonderful gift, and it's an enhancement of our life. It's a gift that maybe changes our life. As I said, we're just touching on these very, very gently right now, but that's what the Torah does to us. But this is saying something about the Torah, that something happens to the Torah, right?
Through us, through our engagement,
What happens?
that we're increasing the Torah's magnificent stature because we're involved.
Right, right. So the Torah itself changes by being put in our hands, right? The Torah doesn't just get used up, right? We've got $1 million endowment, and then we keep spending it down, right? Which wouldn't be bad to have,
Right now, right?
but no. What happens is by giving us the Torah for our benefit and for our good, God also makes it possible for us to make the Torah greater, more beautiful, more glorious, more honored, more held in esteem. How do we do that?
Isn't that because we interact with it? I mean, we use it as a guide, we interact it with, we interpret it. And so it's through that interaction with the Torah that we sort of honor and magnify ourselves and the Torah.
Okay. Anybody else? What other effects could happen as a result of our engagement in the Torah? What effects on the Torah could be achieved by our active engagement in the Torah?
We come to revere it even more. Instead of it just being a text in front of us, we realize just how magnificent these words are.
So remember that old joke, which you know very well, Craig. What you mean we? Who's the we? Who's the we here who will be honoring the Torah?
Those of us who are engaging in it. In other words, the more you engage in it, the more wonderful it appears to you, and therefore you'll want to engage with it even more. So like a positive feedback loop.
Okay, that's good. Any other possibilities? Yeah, Geraldine.
Well, our engaging it makes it relevant to us. and to what's going on in the world as we grow.
Okay. So
It
that's
helps
again
them,
our,
helps us grow.
our appreciation for the Torah, our evaluation of the Torah grows and grows as we see how it's a benefit and how it's a guide. Craig, you wanted to say?
Yeah,
something?
just one more thing. I mean, sort of taking kind of a, I guess, more of a mystical view of it. The Torah is this living organism, and as we engage in it, yes, we benefit from it, but the Torah itself seems to grow and to grow more honorable and glorious just from the fact of us, in a sense, feeding it by studying it.
So yeah,
Well, it
so that's
also grows, doesn't it also grow because if you think of the oral Torah with the constant interpretations and such, so the Torah expands, right? The Torah literally grows.
right. There's more and more and more of it. Just going back to what Craig was just saying, if we think about human beings, and the Torah is humanized, it's made into a person in our tradition, not just mystically, but the rabbis themselves also have thought of the Torah that way, as a persona. But if we think about people that are not paid attention to, people that are neglected, people that are marginalized, people that are dismissed, how do they feel and how do they too often develop? The answer is crummy, right? There's a tremendous effect on people based on how other people relate to them. If other people relate to me positively, if other people take interest in me, if other people sustain me, I will feel and I will operate so much better than if I am, forget about abused, if I'm just neglected and ignored. I myself will not be able to stand up straight. The thriving, the growth of the human being depends on their being welcomed, embraced, and seen, even, at least at the minimum, by other people. So if we think of the Torah as a persona, then the Torah also can't thrive if it's not embraced, if it's not seen as worthy, right? The Torah's own quote unquote self-esteem will be completely destroyed. So if we see the Torah as in relation to us and needing us to be showing interest and showing care, then that would be a way to think about this as well. But I want to now also push off to a different idea. And I said, who's the we? Who will honor the Torah? And I want to suggest one other thing. And that is that after we show how the Torah can change our lives for the better, then other people, not us, the world, the rest of the world, will then be able to say, wow, this Torah culture is a beautiful culture. This is really something. Look at how wonderfully these people, because they're guided by these values, look at how wonderfully they live in the world. Look at how they participate in making the world a better place. This is Moses in the beginning of his great last oration, the book of Devarim, the whole last book of the Torah, says he says that this is what should be happening. I'm not going to look it up. He says, "Kihi chochmatchem uvinatchem leinei hagoyim." Right, that the world, the nations of the world will say, "Wow, this is so kirak am chacham v'navon hagoy hagadol hazeh." What a wise and discerning people this people is because of their legal system, their values, their way of life. So the Torah becomes honored, glorified by others. Think about today how we have expanded our, at least to a certain extent, and sometimes, and not always as consistently as we might, but let's take, for instance, the whole appreciation that we have, for instance, of the East, the wisdom of the East. So let's say it's the last, whatever it is, 2 generations or whatever. We were very, Western centric. We believed that the West had all good things. We were the smartest. We were the most creative. We were the most dynamic. And then all of a sudden we started saying, wow, look at how much, the East has to offer. And more recently, we look in let's say in the United States, and we look at all the peoples that we've destroyed and decimated, and we go, look at the wisdom that these people had that we can learn from. Wow, there's real profound understanding of what it means to live together as a human being with the rest of nature, with the rest of the world. So we begin to start having respect and honor and seeing there's something glorious about that wisdom tradition. There's something glorious about that way of life. And this is another way of thinking about, well, will the rest of the world see how we live and go, wow, that's pretty beautiful. They're very fortunate to have that beautiful culture. Unfortunately, too many people who are very, very, very deeply involved in Jewish life have a very xenophobic and dismissive attitude toward the rest of the world. And they think that because we've got this special Torah, the heck with what everybody else thinks. Because they don't get it, we get it. Totally wrong. It's totally perverting what should be happening. I mentioned it yesterday, the concept of Kiddush Hashem, the concept of sanctifying God's name is about making other people in the world stand back for a second and say, that's beautiful, or that's moving, or that's really right when we do something. And whenever we don't do something that makes somebody else stand back and say, oh, look at that, that's really special and important, then we are desecrating God's name. So we have, a big, burden and a big role that has been given to us. And that's part of this lizakot, right? It's a gift, but it's also to purify things is a difficult process. Sometimes it means putting it through, extreme fire and heat and processes of refinement that are not smooth and easy, right? Is that really what we are ready to do? But that's what Ratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what God willed. That's what God really desired. Yeah, Sarita.
So also, I think that I'm also thinking about it from God's perspective. I mean, you might, people could ask, well, what does God get out of this in some sense? But, when you give a gift and it's, you really get that it's the right gift and you see how people use it and treasure it, what that does to, I think about the effect that has on the gift giver.
Yes.
So it also does that for God as well.
Right. And 2 very, very astute comments in the chat room that we are out of time. We've gotten to the end of so we didn't quite make it into chapter 2. Hopefully next time. Okay, Yasher Koach.
Yasher
Take care.
Koach.
Yashkoach.